just at the end of last month, now the deputy leader of the Ulster Unionist Party. How does that sound?
That's fantastic. I think you're given an opportunity. I've always believed in stepping up when the opportunity presents itself, and it's very much one that I want to take on board to show other women, particularly women interested in our party, that there are those pathways there. And I know a lot of women have gone before. The opportunity didn't present itself then, and it's presented itself now, so I'm certainly not going to turn it down. I'm delighted to be working alongside Jon Burrows as our party leader.
And yeah, I suppose talking to me about that trajectory, it's been quite a quick one. You know, I think September 24 you were co-opted as an MLA, and January 26 you're now second in command as such within the party. So it's been a bit of a whirlwind for you.
Well, it's not forgetting that I've been 9 years as an elected representative, so that was a really good preparation for being offered again another opportunity arose to step into this role here as an MLA when Tom Elliott was elevated to the House of Lords. And my thinking has always been, you can take on the opportunity, you can evaluate it when you're in the role, and if it's not for you, you can make a decision to do otherwise. But no, I have to say it's all been very positive. And I sensed also the excitement in that contest, the excitement that came from the grassroots, that they really responded, to the names being put forward. So to me, that was a very positive experience.
Mm-hmm. Do you mind if I bring you back to your dad, obviously, who was leader of the party in the past? So I'm sure he'd be very, very proud of it.
I think he would. I think he'd be very pleased. Yes. I think because Fermanagh and South Tyrone has always been a very strong bedrock of Ulster Unionism, and I see Fermanagh and South Tyrone still playing a very strong part. We have a lot of very good activists and people coming through in that area too, so I think he'd be very pleased to see that continuing.
Mm-hmm. Can you just comment on the fact that it was reported, at least, that within that process of selecting a new leader, you were described as the kingmaker within that process? How true was that?
Well, that's an observation made by other people. To me, it was a process where I listened and took soundings from grassroots. I went with my instinct, and that was to support Jon Burrows. And in the end, it was a coronation, as people have again referenced. So I was glad to be part of that, yes.
Mm-hmm. And were you disappointed at all that there wasn't a contest as such, or are you kind of happy with how it all came through? I suppose we need to obviously comment on the fact that both yourself and Jon were co-opted into your roles as MLAs. Yes. Do you think that poses a problem at all for either of you or the party?
Well, I think, of course, you hold yourself up for scrutiny in every aspect of your public life. The fact that it wasn't a contest, ideally we would have preferred a contest, but we're a very democratic party. It was unanimously supported by the grassroots and by those attending the EGM. So in terms of satisfaction, perhaps it would have been a thing to have a vote, but that didn't take place. But we had the unanimous mandate there on that day.
Why did you throw your weight in behind Jon as opposed to any other potential candidates?
Well, as I said, I took soundings, and I always listen to the grassroots, particularly if you're from Fermanagh and South Tyrone, you listen to your electorate. And really, to me, the overwhelming, the compelling backing was for that partnership of Jon Burrows and myself. And Robbie is a fantastic colleague, has been previously Deputy Leader and Chief Whip, and Robbie has been a very, very good colleague to work with. So unfortunately, if it was a contest between two people, there's only one outcome of that, and I chose to run with Jon Burrows.
Can I just pick up then on some comments made by Robbie yesterday? In an interview, he was asked very directly, I would say, does he support the new leader? Instead of just saying yes, it was what I would suggest is quite a long rambling answer, which kind of said yes but didn't really get there. Why do you think that was?
Well, Robbie hit the nail on the head. It is service before self in our party. It always has been. And again, that is what the unanimous voices in the room chose, was the message that we were delivering in terms of service, service representing the unionist people, our electorate. So it was also offering our vision for the pro-union argument within unionism, that we see that as the stronger way forward.
Mm-hmm. And I suppose just touching on that element of whether there is or isn't party unity within the UUP. Obviously, there's a lot of talk around that at the meeting last month.
Yes.
In your view, do you see any dissent within your grouping of MLAs?
No, not at all. And it was really, really pleasing and very positive that every MLA did attend the EGM. And I'm now Chief Whip as well, so that would be my role. The role of Chief Whip is obviously to organise the party with the business in the weeks ahead, and it's obviously the disciplinary role. I don't see a need for discipline in that role at all. We are a cohesive unit, and certainly I've always had a total support from my colleagues there.
You picked up on the very start, one of your first comments there was just about your I suppose being a female and the challenges maybe that come with that. You obviously are only the only female MLA within your party at Stormont. Do you see that as a difficulty or a challenge to rise to?
Yeah, I see really it as a challenge for females, particularly in unionism. When I did a survey of councillors for the DUP, for the UUP, sitting around 24% of councillors in the DUP are female, 25% of the UUP councillors are female. So there's a message there, and I think it could also be cultural. Working in Stormont buildings itself at Parliament buildings, it's not really a conducive life to where you have childcare and elder care responsibilities. So that is something we're looking for, reform the delivery of how we deliver in this place, how we maximise efficiencies and how we deliver for both the electorate, for the constituents, but also for the elected representatives to make it meaningful, that they can do their best job in the best conditions.
Do you think your party particularly needs to look at that level of representation of females here?
That's one of my objectives, certainly, yes, and it's something we're working on, developing policy on recruiting females and also supporting them and retaining them, because we had the experience with Doug Beattie as leader, who brought a raft of females in as candidates. Now, when those candidates didn't get selected, there's an economic situation there. People have to earn their living. So the candidates naturally, if they weren't in an elected position, had to reconsider their career choices. And in that sense, you can lose some talent. But what we very much want to do is to bring people through that pathway, either as activists or as elected representatives. And it's very much up to the electorate to work with us, to say to the electorate, look, we really want to balance this party, because the input of females into our policy making, our decision making is valuable, and we need to consider that at all times.
Mm-hmm. And just, I suppose, touching on that too, in terms of the wider political institutions here, this week you've been involved in what I believe you referred to hugely misogynistic comments made by an Alliance MLA about yourself. We've had arguments in the past, even just this last week, between Timothy Gaston and Paul Bradshaw. Your own party colleague Steve Aiken has been criticised in the past for how he speaks to some female members within the chamber. Do you think that there's a wider problem here in terms of misogyny and how females are viewed within this place?
Yeah, I think none of the behaviours and the outspoken language are befitting of this place. You're here in an institution that is here to govern, and it's very much on the shoulders of all elected representatives to set an example, and that's what they should do here. It's a privilege to be in this place. Our focus is on delivering for our country, for Northern Ireland, to get the best opportunities for all who live here. And minor spats like that, they are a distraction, and I think respect has to always be at the basis of all cooperation.
Mm. So, was there anything else you'd like to say, particularly about David's comments? I know you referred to them as hugely misogynistic. Would you like to see any further action, for example? I know we've had disputes over whether we should be spending time on Standards Commissioner reports and things like that. How would you like to see that resolved, or is it resolved?
Well, David has apologised to me today personally as well. I'd like to draw a line in the sand. I would like the Alliance Party to be more aware that they have called this out on many occasions. It now is being called by me against them, and they need to consider, how it appears on the outside too. So hopefully we can draw a line and move on from that.
Mm-hmm. Can I just ask you, I suppose, then, about, obviously, we're served as a councillor on Fermanagh and Omagh District Council for 9 years, as you referred to there. It's obviously your home place. It's something you feel very passionate about. So, what do you think that you'll bring to the leadership in order to represent that area?
Well, I think being deputy leader as well brings the opportunity to engage and network more and to do more lobbying, because you will be, in the course of your work with the leader, meeting other people who normally you may not be meeting. So I think it's that piece there is very important, to sell the area that you come from. There's a very strong manufacturing base in Dungannon, huge agricultural community in Fermanagh, and tourism is vitally important. And those are the three strands that I'd really like to see promoted. We've unfortunately experienced job losses at ABP, Linden Retail, packaging plant. So we need to really be aware and be alive to where the pressures are in the businesses and industry. And again, going back to the infrastructure piece, to help businesses be more competitive, to retain talent, to retain jobs. That is why regionally we need to have the same balance offered to us in the southwest as there are in other parts of Northern Ireland. And that's something that I really will continue to call out.
I suppose just bring it back to the Enniskillen bypass. Obviously there was controversy, shall we call it that, over the last few days about the department's reallocation of funds which were previously committed to the Enniskillen bypass. I suppose, could you explain for anyone outside of that constituency why this is such an important project, and do you regret any of the comments that you made in relation to that last week?
I think what you're referring to really is just the comment about the funding being withdrawn. Yes. It's maybe just interpretation of how it seems. The funding has been taken away. Certainly it has been withdrawn, in my opinion, from a project that has been long in the waiting and been really anticipated eagerly by all commuters across Fermanagh, by industry itself, because in terms of connectivity, that is a vital project for the region. We have increased pressure on the island town of Enniskillen with congestion there. And when we are welcoming tourists to our area, when we welcome investors, we want to see an infrastructure system that is attractive, that shows that we have 21st century connectivity in the region.
I suppose just coming back to regional balance then, I hear it all the time from people within the office, on the streets, particularly in Belfast, that those from the west always complaining that they don't get enough. Do you think there's any merit in that argument at all?
I just want to shine more light on the really good things that are happening in the west, but we do need more jobs, we do need growth, we do need opportunities for young people to stay and thrive in the west. It's very, very important to support services in the west. When you look at Southwest College and Enniskillen with the Green Growth Skills programmes, with the other skills programmes that they're developing, those are fantastic opportunities for young people in the border areas. I've also worked with border clustering manufacturing groups, cross-border supply chains, more opportunities there to work together to really enhance and be more competitive and keep your cost efficiencies. So I do think that there are a lot of positives, but we certainly need more capital funding into the region, and it's something that I'll just keep fighting for, yeah.
Do you think politicians from Fermanagh and South Tyrone have delivered for the people in the last decade, for example?
Well, we've had investment in the Southwest College, fantastic college there that offers skills, widely across the board. We've had the development of the workhouse in Enniskillen. There has been significant Peace Plus money into tourism as well, but there's so much more can be done, and tourism in particular needs that help to really elevate it into a strategy that is workable and that will bring more tourists into our region to spend money and to help the local economy.
Just coming back to the party again, then what do you see as the where the future is headed for the Ulster Unionists?
I see growth. I see optimism. I mean, there are 250,000 people in Northern Ireland who are totally turned off with politics. But with the response that we've had recently to the change in leadership within the party and the vision being captured by Jon Burrows and me as his deputy, I see an enthusiasm and interest there in clear speaking, in insisting that we get delivery right, that we owe that to our people in Northern Ireland, that we must make these institutions work and deliver efficiencies across the board.
Jon said, I believe, when he was ratified as leader, that he wanted to make the Ulster Unionists the biggest party within unionism again. Do you think that's a realistic prospect?
I think it can be. I mean, it will take time. Growth takes time. But I think if you do it in incremental steps, looking forward, we would have the challenge after the next mandate of looking whether we go into government, whether we go into opposition. Those are things we are considering actively at the moment, and we'll also consult among all the MLAs and our office holders in the party on whatever steps we take.
Mm-hmm. In terms of how you would see it going forward, some have kind of suggested that with Jon having been ratified, that the party is going to take a step to the right of unionism, perhaps in response to the well-documented approach taken by the DUP, in particularly in the last year. Would you agree with that assessment? Is the elect or the ratification of Jon and yourself a move to the right for the party?
What you see in Jon is a very clear-minded and confident person moving forward, focused on how we can deliver best here. And I don't think a shift to the right is in that thinking at all. I think we're very proudly unionists, proudly pro-union, with the values of the Ulster Unionist Party. So no, that will not change.